So this is April now, early April. I'm going to do a garden tour. It's been very busy with a lot of transplanting going on in the garden, and then we had an interesting frost that went down to -4, -5 one night, and so a lot of things needed a bit of protection. Unfortunately, everything survived. I'll show you around and you'll see how much more life there is in the garden this time of the year, and everything is filling up very, very quickly. Then I'll take you around to look at some tools, because people have asked questions about some of the tools that we use, and also the irrigation. I'll show you some perennial veg, so hopefully there'll be some more interesting, some more unusual stuff in this tour as well. Let's start from the top. I'll turn the camera around. It's a time of flowering. There's a lot of daffodils and tulips and a lot of herbaceous perennials that are flowering. And in this top bed here that we use for our courses, we've just transplanted things along the sides. There's beetroot, there's lettuce and perpetual spinach, and we've left the plants that were already there in the center, in the middle row. And this is just to demonstrate how much diversity you can have in a single bed. Plants growing next to each other don't necessarily compete with each other, especially if they're going to do different things. If they've got different types of roots, different heights, so that they capture light from different levels. Hello, Roger. And also if they're going to be picked at different times, a little bit like they're also staggered in time as well as in space, which is what you get in a normal ecological succession. On the left hand side here, there's a similar concept, not as much diversity yet, but there are some spring onions and some lettuce and some broad beans. And here you might just be able to make it out. What's happening is that there are some green manures, some cover crops growing. There's phacelia and there's buckwheat and there's fenugreek that Claire, a volunteer, sowed, and they've all popped up. There are hoops, as you can see, aluminium hoops, because those were covered with fleece. Now it's too windy, as you might probably hear, to have the fleece on, so all these hoops just don't have the fleece on. There's spinach here, young spinach plants. They don't mind the cold, but they actually don't love the wind, and it's been incredibly windy and cold in this last week. Let's go down. So the rocket is still in flower, and that's good. It attracts a lot of beneficial insects. I'll show you some. I'm sure I'll see some ladybirds around soon. This bed has been like this for ages now. We've been harvesting a little bit here and there, but it's just to demonstrate how little weeding we need to do. We haven't done any weeding here for months and months and months, and there are barely any weeds. The diversity again here is quite big. There's just a bit of grass there, and there's chard, there's kale, there is lettuce, there's lots of things in there. There's spinach down the back. Let me show you that as well. There's some true spinach around here that needs to come out soon, different varieties. Look at this guy here. There's my shadow in the way. Cool. So this is old beds, and you can probably see here there's some oats, black oats coming as a green manure. These are broad beans, and they've also been undersown on the sides with oats, so this will be a green manure. When the broad beans will come out, the grass, the oats will take over, and then we'll plant something else down the middle. And here we've got carrot beds. They haven't popped up yet. They haven't sprouted yet. Hopefully it hasn't been too cold and they haven't rotted in the ground. These are all old beds, so I'm not going to focus on these. I'm also going to face this way because the wind is quite fierce from the other side. So you can really see actually this effect that the wind and the water make on the compost in this bed here, because it's really smudged. You can see that it's quite a smooth surface. These are perpetual spinach, which I will show you in a second how they look when they're adult plants, but these are very young and they've been covered again but battered by the wind. And this is the old season perpetual spinach, now producing again after we cut the slightly unhappy foliage that grew over winter, and they can be picked again. This was sown in August last year, and they're still July to August, yeah, perhaps early August actually, and they were cropped many times, and they still will do until they flower towards the end of April. Here lots of flowers. You've seen already this bed in the previous tour. So this is a bed of brassicas, including rocket, mizuna, mispuna, mustards, and they're all attracting beneficial insects, especially parasitic wasps that at the moment don't have caterpillars to eat. So the adults are eating pollen from brassicas, and then the youngsters will colonize, attack, parasitize the caterpillars. These guys are going to flower. This is a beautiful mustard called Green Wave, and it's now flowering. And these flowering shoots are really good, really nice to eat, like those of all brassicas. Here you can see this beautiful stance of green manures, and there's two crops really here, two cover crops here. One is this beautiful winter rye, cereal rye, which forms beautiful matting roots, fibrous roots, which will add carbon to the soil, and the tops will go in the compost. And then we've got these slightly modified broad beans. They're field beans. They make huge nitrogen fixing nodules, and now that they're flowering, they can be cut and the tops go in the compost, and the roots stay in the ground. We never till things in because that would mean tilling, and we don't till. Remember, we no dig. Here we got lots of spring onions, and these are old radishes that we're leaving just to cover the soil at the moment as a cover crop. To my left here we got one of our favourite and most successful interplantings, quite standard in a way. There's peas climbing up this trellis soon, and then we've got beetroots on the side, so different colours, yellow, orange, red, pink, different type of beetroots. And the idea is that they will grow underneath the peas. When the peas will come out towards the end of July, depending on the succession, it might be earlier or later, the beetroots will grow on happily on the sides, getting even more light. And here there will be, so the beetroots are already in to get some extra light, get big enough before the peas will be planted in between, in between the rows of beetroots. Here there's a lot of coriander on this side, and a lot of beautiful red spring onions. Hopefully you can see, apart from the slightly yellowish tips, these are superb spring onions. Yeah, hopefully you can see that. They're quite nice. And we mix them with white ones, so we make beautiful bunches. While I'm here, a few people have asked about our irrigation system. So this is a sprinkler system. These are impact heads, so they can do part circle by playing with this thingy here, and we can make them do only part of the full circle. And they've got a valve that we apply there. These all barbed fittings, so relatively cheap, even though this stuff is very expensive these days. And it's all 3/4 inch pipe, 20mm pipe that goes up to a manifold, and the separate lines of course they've got separate valves at the heads at the manifold. What else? Let's have a look here. These were spring greens. They didn't really amount to much. They didn't make heads, so we're using the flowering tips. These are beautiful. These guys here are amazing. You can eat them raw, you can cook with them. We sell them as rapini. They're a beautiful product. One of the best things we sell this time of the year, even though not many people know what they are. And let me turn around again. This is parsley from last year. It's been here forever, actually. It's been here more than 6 months now, still producing strong. A little bit of yellowing for the extra water in the ground, and it's got blocks of spring onions with it. Here you can see our white spring onions instead. It's quite dark down here. Beautiful white Lisbon, beautiful variety. And here we've got new crop, new season's broad beans. So these were planted in spring as opposed to the others that you'll see in a minute, and that you've seen some of before that were planted in the autumn. So these will be a later succession, and then there's a succession that's in the trace, so it's coming up now as a seed. These are old crops. You've seen this green manure mixed bed many times. There's so much life in here. And there's also some field beans in here, and it's really interesting to have a look at whether they've done any nitrogen fixation, this field bean. So look at the nodulation there, really good nodulation. Let's have a look. What you have to do when you have a nitrogen fixing crop is check that the nodules are pink inside. That's a sign that the oxygen is being transported down and nitrogen is being fixed. You can see that it's a pinkish color inside, and so that's a good sign. So these guys have been fixing nitrogen like they should have. Beautiful. So we've got some more beetroots there. And the leeks, the leeks this year have been crazy. We've grown quite a lot, but we managed to sell so many, and they're really beautiful. I'll show you some of the ones that have been cleaned. They look like really good, and they also taste amazing. So it's a soil, obviously ours, that seems to be suitable for them. There are lettuce transplants in here, very young, so this is to protect them from the wind. There's a lot of slugs here because if you remember last time, here there were green manures. You can still see a little bit of the grass of the winter rye here. Oops, wind is picking up. And obviously when you have long tall plants, you can tell there's wind here. Look at that. The slugs really love it underneath. This area here where we got the herbs and the willow, we've been talking about that in the last few tours. We're going to remove the landscape fabric now, and we're going to have wood chips right to the herbs, and then we leave a little bit of the landscape fabric just for the bit that's neighbouring the field. We'll have a clean here because the weeds are creeping in. Right, Roger? That's it. And here you can see when you don't occultate, you don't put plastic on top of cut grass as a green manure, it will pop back unless you really chop it, you really mow it really low, almost into the ground. So with the one just behind it and with the ones there, what we did is we covered them with plastic, and we'll do the same for this one behind it, just for a week or so if it's warm, and it'll be good. Now that we're here, flowering rocket and flowering radish, they flower at slightly different times in spring here, but these flowers are amazingly good to eat. This top these buds are really nutty. It's like eating a walnut nearly. And this yellow, look, there's a bee. These yellow flowers are sweetish and peppery, but not hot. So really good crop in its own right. What we got here, we got the broad beans that were planted in the autumn. They are now flowering. They're very low. Usually this variety is very tall, but because of the wind that's been quite crazy this winter, you see they've all kind of bent down and then they're growing up again. And that's fine. They're quite stable now the way they are, so I'm not going to do anything to them. We're not going to do anything to them. We're just going to let them grow and produce. They've got tons of flowers. There've been a lot of bumblebees on them, so they're going to do fine. Have a look at this garlic. So most of this is elephant garlic, and there's also some normal purple garlic. We'll have a look at the tunnel, and you'll see how much bigger it's over there. So obviously without the wind and the extra rain, things grow a lot better. These are beds that are going to be converted soon, so they're still in between things. And here, beautiful purple sprouting broccoli that we all know very well. It's doing amazing. We've got lots of it. We've got to pick it fast before it flowers. Some lettuce that was supposed to die, but it didn't because it didn't freeze much, and now that it's gone frosty, just for one day it wasn't enough to kill it. And new spring onions for the new year. So we've got different levels of spring onions. So that's quite a nice thing to show you. We've got the latest planting from last year. Look at how small they are. Then there are the ones that I showed you earlier that are ready to harvest now. Here in this bed here, these are ready. And this was done, I think in October they were transplanted. These were transplanted in mid to late November. And then we've got these guys that were transplanted this spring, and sown this spring as well. And so we've got continuous production of spring onions. And here there's some red Russian kale, a beautiful crop. It's called red Russian, like, doesn't make any sense because it's not red, it's got just purplish stems or stalks, but anyway, lots of plant names are like that. And there's beautiful beds of this amazing leaf. It can be sold as a baby leaf, it can go in salad as a small leaf, but it can also be grown as a big bunching green that you can put in sell as a bunch and cook it, put it in soups or in stir fries. This is mustard. There were leeks in between. If you remember, we talked about that interplanting with leeks, spinach, beans, and now there's mustard there, and we'll soon do the same thing later with the leeks and the beans. There were mustards in here, but slugs got most of them, whereas there's a beautiful there's a very good growth on this rocket here. You can barely see it because it's under netting again from the winds and a little bit for the flea beetle. And here we've got some turnips and radishes under netting, and still very small. And you know, when you see that yellowing of the first few leaves, the cotyledon and the cotyledons, that's a sign of cold stress. So I might show you that a little bit better, but there is a little bit of that going on just because of the cold. They were stressed, but they'll catch up. They're just slowed down because of that effect. And then we've got behind us some more flowering green manures. This is tillage radish. These beds have been broad forked, ready to be transplanted. Then we've got red curly, again should be called purple really. Anyway, don't listen to my rants about names. This is red curly kale, beautiful plant. And now it's going to flower, and these flowering shoots are really, really tasty, cooked or raw. And then let's go across here. We've got some more purple kale, landcress, a beautiful herb. And then this is a mixed bed, which has got kale and chard. Look at this chard, it's got up again and it's producing really strongly beautiful stalks. So we've got really good chard this year, inside and outside of the tunnel. Lots of tulips here. Flowers have been quite happy with the mild winter, apart from the last few weeks. And let's have a look inside the tunnel now. So in here you can see straight away how the garlic has been doing a lot better than outside, but that's normal because there's no wind, there's no rain. Look, they're released a month ahead, if not more. This is good because we'll harvest them first and then we'll keep harvesting outside. We sell them as wet garlic. They're a bit more expensive that way, and then we can sell them as dry garlic, the ones that we don't sell wet. By wet, oh look, there's a lot of ladybirds around because look, this guy is moving along the drip tape as well. Lots of these guys. There's a bit of aphid pressure in here now. It's been dry and warm, and they're feasting on the aphids. So the flowers that you see behind you help attract them in, and then the aphids, and the cycle of life carries on. The complexity and diversity of these systems is what makes them resilient. So beautiful chard, as I said, inside. There's beautiful Cavallonero behind you. We've been in here quite often, so I'm not going to focus on this too much, apart from showing you some new plantings actually. On this side here we've removed the herbs. There was some chervil, and there's still some chervil at the back there, and some coriander and dill. And now we've put some radishes and turnips in there, and then we're slowly removing the spinach plants on this side and replacing them with young lettuce on the side of the garlic. And this all the while garlic has been growing in there. And in here, just down the middle where the carrots were, unfortunately the carrots were got by the mice, and now we've planted some young radish from seed, so that's gonna grow in between these beautiful Cavallonero plants, which are really amazing at the moment. Spinach under the bench, an update, it's growing amazing. It's very dark down here, but it's amazing how it grows. And in this space is been really active. We've been sowing, and well, Flavia really has been sowing, and we've been transplanting all together a lot of vegetables all the time. And also Flavia's been busy doing some grafting that she'll now tell you a little bit about.
So I'm now going to do some grafting of tomatoes. So this is the rootstock, and is called Protector, and we choose this is an F1, and we choose this rootstock because it increased the yield of the tomatoes. So we are going to graft Marmande, and they are beef tomatoes, and usually they have a very late production, and it's quite low compared to the cherry tomatoes. So I would like to see if with a rootstock, different rootstock, we can increase the yield of the tomatoes. So now I'm going to make with a sharp razor, I'm going to make a diagonal cut on the plant, and then I'm gonna choose the top of our Marmande, the same size of the stem of the rootstock, so they will be perfectly the same size. And then I'm gonna, with a clip, they will stick together. And then I'm going to remove the leaves of the plant to reduce evaporation, and then I'm gonna place the little plants in a tub, and then usually they will stay 2-3 days in a very dark place with a lot of moisture, like 90% moisture, and very warm temperatures, like 20 degrees. And then slowly we will give them more light, and then they will heal completely, and we plant them out.
Cool, we come back in here. I wanted to show you a few more things around the tunnel, and then we'll go out and have a look at some other bits and pieces. So if I turn the camera around, you can see there's a lot more seedlings here, and some of them we pot them up. Here we got the cabbage, some sunflower plants, but mostly cabbage here, and they've been potted up so that they can be transplanted when the danger of slugs destroying them in seconds is a bit lower. Here we have peas under cover so that the mice and rats can't get them. And out here there is a beautiful experiment. I say the word beautiful a lot, sorry about that. This is a bed, a mushroom bed. So what we've done here is we put compost, broad forked, put compost, put dead leaves, dried leaves, and then wood chip, hardwood wood chip. So this is cherry and oak. And then we have inoculated with some plugs, and we've planted these old blueberries that we had in pots. We opened the bottom of the pot, so now it's free to, the roots are free to go into the ground underneath, and hopefully we will get some beautiful mushrooms coming from here. This is a very raised bed, well, very slightly raised bed, and there's a lot of activity, there's a lot of moisture in there, and the mushrooms that we've inoculated are Kingstropharia as usual, that are quite happy to grow in just hardwood wood chip. And here we've got some things hardening off: perpetual spinach, some little gem lettuce, some golden beetroot, and some beautiful rockets. And some people have asked, oh, you don't thin your plants? No, these are all multi-sown, so there are several seedlings per plug, and they love growing like that, especially beetroot, perpetual spinach, and a lot of plants like that, because their seeds are actually clusters, so they are used to being dropped on the ground and growing as a cluster, as a clump of plants. So they love being multi-sown and transplanted as a clump. Before we finish this outside part of the tour, I'm going to show you this a few beds on the side here. We got comfrey that's popping through quite nicely, and we've mulched it with a lot of wood chip, so we have less weeding to do while it grows. And then we got some true spinach that's growing in there. These were the parsnips that we had discarded because they were too small, and the foliage wasn't really happy, and so we left them in there thinking they would die, but actually they're still good. You know, I showed this during the course on Sunday to show that they grow well even in very hard clay. This bed was made only not very long ago, and yeah, they're still good. So they're growing now. They want to go to flower, so they need picking very soon. So we sell most of them this week. And then let's go down to the perennials. You can hopefully see that we've done a bit of tidying up in this space. There's now 3 beds of perennials. This one on the right has been mulched with our own compost. This is homemade, beautifully rich compost, a lot better than the green waste we get. It's a lot more rich in life, and you can tell the colour is more fungally rich, it's more aggregated. It keeps moisture a lot better. It might have the odd weed seed, but we'll get rid of that. And then the others had the same treatment, but then we mulched with wood chip, and there are things popping through. Obviously the big Dobington kales and Taunton Dean kales. There is some lovage there, levisticum, and then those are just weeds that are trying to pop through. But there's beautiful again artichokes. Those are globe artichokes. You can see the old flowering globes still on there. This is Scorsonera, if I'm not incorrect. It's a root crop, and some purple fennel, and then more artichokes, and then some nice rhubarb there. So these are all perennial crops, and these 3 beds will be transformed pretty much into the same thing, with the heavy mulching of compost and then wood chip. And it's fine to transplant things with a heavy mulch of wood chip if they're perennials. They're not going to touch the wood chip there, so they're not going to get mixed with the soil. When you have a lot of annual planting, they get removed and harvested more often, and so the wood chips can get mixed into the soil and lock your nitrogen, and that's not ideal. Now look at these violas, how you want to call them. They've been growing throughout the winter without complaining for a second, despite the wind and the cold and the rain, and still giving beautiful flowers for our salad bags. Here you can see a little bit of weed pressure, and this is a perennial thistle that has rhizomes, and it's not surprising. This is the only type of area in the garden where we get any weed pressure, which is from the boundaries or where the soil has been disturbed. So when you don't dig, you see a series of weeds pop up. Rosebay willow herb, compacted, loves compacted waterlogged soils, thistles, disturbed soils, and then we've got here the hairy bittercress, which populates the soil when it's uncovered. And this area had obviously that big hole dug into. This was a reservoir, and that disturbed all the soil underneath here. This beds was essentially subsoil and not topsoil, and you can see also how the couch grass here, Elysimus repens, loves the compacted ground. So you've got a selection of weeds that we get in the garden in general, but usually because some seeds will blow in or only on the boundaries from neighbouring fields, but we never get in our beds. And here you can see a nice selection of them just in this spot where soil has been disturbed. That's the ecological function of weeds, is to fix disturbed soil and make it look like our beds, which is rich in organic matter, fluffy, oxygenated, and more prone to encouraging perennial productive plants. Right, several of you have asked about tools, especially one tool, so I'm going to focus today on a tool that everybody has been asking about, and it's this Dibbler that was made by our friend Dan, who is a magician with things like this. You can really build things very effectively, and he did it to our own request, so you can see how it works. Well, you can see how it works in the video that I'm showing now, but here you can see also how you can set it up and how customizable it is. So this Dibbler bits can be unscrewed and come off from the main bar, or be put at the distance that you want, and then tighten them again. And we've got 3 signs here for the main 25 centimeter 3-row pattern, but then we got also some more specific spacing there for other type of spacings. So this is a great tool. I think you can relatively easily make it. Apart from this Dibbler bits, everything else is easily sourceable. There's just handles, and this type of bar should be easy to find. It's aluminium, and so I guess you could 3D print almost something like this. And I'll show you what the Dibbler is made from to be able to do the screwing and unscrewing the way it works. It's essentially a bolt. It's difficult with one hand, so bear with me. It's essentially a bolt and a nut, and the bolt has been welded in or soldered in. Don't ask me, I'm not good with metal, so I don't know really how this was made, but it's hollow inside. So this is obviously a steel sheet that was bent to shape, and then the bolt and nut were attached, and this nut moves to give the right amount of tightness that you want, and then you can move it along that rail. So this is a great tool. I might talk about other tools in future videos. We've got loads of tools here, but in fact not as many as you might think. There's mostly just standard forks and rakes and certain types of knives for harvesting, and then the broad fork and a few type of hoes for the very rare weeding we do. Well, and that's all, folks, for the early April tour. I'm specifying early April because I might do another tour later on in the month where the garden is a bit fuller. There's going to be so much happening this month. Tomorrow we have our first market on site. This is a recon market that we do here at Goffin land in the garden, and so we're looking forward to that, to seeing customers come to the garden directly. And we've had our first courses. There'll be another course in May, and so many things are happening. So much stuff is going out in the garden: transplanting, grafting, sowing, bed flipping. And so in late April it might be nice to see how the garden has changed. So I look forward to then, and hope to see you in that video.